We have to witness our judgment without judgment, and we have to really honor that it is a behavior that we are contributing to the world and polluting the world around us.
Gabrielle Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
Even last week, I had a really big judgment meltdown. So my best friend called me and she says to me, "Oh my God, you're not gonna believe this. I'm in my yoga class and my yoga teacher is talking about you on the stage, and it wasn't nice." And she was talking about your teaching style, and she was kind of putting you down a lot. And immediately this puts me into this place of shame and inadequacy, and I start feeling as though I'm not good enough and I'm not smart enough, and who is this yoga teacher that's talking about me? And I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to feel that discomfort and those feelings of insecurity. So instantly I start saying, well, what kind of spiritual teacher would judge another spiritual teacher? And I start going off about it. I'm just pissed. What kind of spiritual teacher is judging another spiritual teacher? And then I realized in that moment, oh my God, I'm a spiritual teacher judging another spiritual teacher. So I start judging myself for judging a spiritual teacher, and I don't want to feel that guilt of judging myself. So immediately I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to judge my friend for telling me this in the first place. How dare she tell me this information? I don't need to know this. And then I realize, oh my God, I'm so rude. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm judging my best friend. I'm judging a yoga teacher. And in a week from now, I have a book coming out called Judgment Detox. So this is what I call the judgment cycle. This is the judgment cycle. We're triggered. Our wounds are triggered. A place within us is triggered to feel inadequate and not good enough or not smart enough or fearful. And we feel that sense of insecurity and that trigger and that wound, and we do not want to go there. So we will do anything we can to anesthetize that pain, and the first line of attack is to judge someone else, to project out what we don't want to feel within. It's the quickest and safest way not to feel that. And then when we do that, we unconsciously feel a sense of guilt, because the truth of who we are is not a judgmental being. The truth of who we are is oneness, is kindness, is compassion, is love. And so in that place of judgment, we feel a sense of inadequacy because we know that's not who we are. And then we begin to judge ourselves because we've been judging. And we don't want to feel that kind of pain, so then we project it out again, and then we put it back on ourselves, and then we project it out again, and we put it back on ourselves, and then we're watching CNN and we're judging everybody. And you know what that's like. So ultimately, this judgment cycle I have found is a very addictive pattern. Like any addiction, like picking up a drink or a drug or work addiction or sex addiction, we use judgment to avoid feeling our deep-rooted wounds. And we project out what we don't want to feel. And like any addiction, we can't heal it until we become willing to heal it. So I'm so proud of you all, because you walking in this door today and grabbing multiple books implies that you're willing. So I'm proud of you. I realized that judgment was such a big issue when I was writing my book, The Universe Has Your Back. I wrote The Universe Has Your Back, and I wrote this chapter 9, and it's called Oneness Sets You Free. And in that chapter, I talked all about how judgment was the root cause of one of our main disconnects from the universe. And so I started to write all about how when we release that judgment, we can get greater connection to the universe. We can deepen our relationship to a higher power in that disconnect from that judgment. And I finished this chapter, and I put my hands down on the computer screen, and I was looking at the computer screen with my hands on the keyboard, and I'm looking up, and I think to myself, oh no, this is a book. This is a book. I have to write this. This isn't just one chapter in a book. This is an entire book. I need to put this on the page. I need to bring this to life. And this was I wasn't even finished with The Universe Has Your Back, but I knew that there was another book in me. So the moment that I launched The Universe Has Your Back, I sold this book because I knew that it had to come out now. I recognized that we were living in the most divisive times that we have ever known. I recognized that not only were we in more division and separation than I'd ever seen, but we also had these little devices in our hands that were creating that division and multiplying it and magnifying it and waking us up in the morning with an alarm that we look at and we say, oh, what are they doing now because they're so much better than I am? Or, oh no, I can't believe they did that. I'm so much better than they are. And that perpetual separation and judgment and attack had become such an epidemic that I knew that this had to get out. So sometimes when I hear that call, I just got to get it out. So here we are a year later. I saw you guys a year ago with The Universe Has Your Back. We're back. I'll give you a little break after this one. But I had to get this out, and I had to not only get it out for you, but I had to write it for myself. I've been very transparent with my readers that these books are not just written for you, they're written for me, because these books are how I survive. These books are how I survive and how I thrive. Because they're gentle reminders. Every time I place my hands on the keyboard and I begin to type, I am downloading information that is not just meant to heal you, it's meant to heal me. Because this is information that I am desperately in need of. I open the book by admitting how judgmental I am, and today I'm going to tell you a lot of stories about it. And I get honest, and I had to be real, because otherwise I would be lying to you. Otherwise, I would be completely out of alignment with the message that was meant to come through. And that message is that through the practices in this book and the principles in this book, you can change your perception of your judgment. It's not that you're going to stop judging. You're human, you're having a human experience. You're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to be hit with those judgments. You're going to have them throughout the day. But the miracle is that you're not going to believe in them anymore. And the cool thing, anybody started reading the book yet? Nice, so like 10% of you. Well, many of you are like, well, I just got 15 of them, so what are you talking about? All right, so if you've had an experience of the book, you'll begin to notice, and I've been receiving emails from people and seeing messages on my Facebook and my Instagram of people saying to me, the most miraculous things are happening. I'm able to move out of my judgment quickly. I'm able to witness it more quickly. I'm able to allow myself to shift my thinking faster. My relationships are changing. My health is changing. One woman had done the Judgment Detox when I workshopped it a year before it came out. And she emailed me and she said, listen, I've been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. And I did your practices and I got pregnant in a month. Because when we practice these principles, we release resistance. And in the absence of that resistance, we can allow good, orderly direction to move through us. We can allow our faith to strengthen. We can allow ourselves to be in a place that's receptive and out of stress and at peace so that we can heal, so that we can allow. And the first journey that we have to go on to begin this healing process is to witness our judgment. And that's the first step of this book, is to witness your judgment without judgment. I began writing this book on November 9th, 2016. I woke up and the election results were in. Perfect day to start. Okay, here we go. So I actually woke up and I immediately went to my computer and I got my hands on the computer and I was like looking at the Facebook messages coming through and all the crazy on CNN.com. And I just kept, wanting to like type and write back to everybody on Facebook. And then I was like, oh my God, you're a spiritual teacher. Don't do that. And then I wanted to write back and fight back. And I was like, nope, don't do that. And so I was going back and forth like this and it was a little crazy. And then by the grace of God, my publicist calls me and she interrupts this crazy. And she says to me, Gabby, there's all these people calling these different media outlets, and they're asking me to see if you would come on and talk about how to find a spiritual solution to the election results. And I'm like, oh God, okay. And immediately I say, yes, I'm coming. But I hang up the phone, and I realize I don't have a spiritual solution for the election results. What am I going to do? But I know that when I teach and when I offer guidance that the answers come to me. So I said, okay, I need this healing. Let me go speak about it. Let me see what comes through me. And I head over and I'm immediately within an hour on like some millions of people on live stream. Everybody's watching and I'm with this news anchor and she's saying to me, Gabby, we're so divided. We're having such a tough time right now. What do we do? And immediately I say, listen, we have to understand that we all have the same problem and we have the same solution. The problem is that we've chosen judgment. And the solution is that we can choose love again. And she said, okay, that sounds really nice, but what do I do? I said, okay, and then I said a prayer because I was like, okay, now I really need to allow something to come through me. And my response was, we have to start by witnessing our judgment without judgment. We have to witness that our attack creates more attack. Our attack perpetuates the problem. It doesn't heal it doesn't offer solutions. It doesn't heal the issue. We have to witness our judgment without judgment, and we have to really honor that it is a behavior that we are contributing to the world and polluting the world around us. And it's creating negativity, and it's creating more judgment, and it becomes a repetition of this behavior, and it becomes a ripple effect. And we have to start to take ownership of that. And the first step is simply just to witness it. Because we can't change any pattern unless we are willing to see that it's an issue. Like any addiction, we cannot change it unless we're willing to see that there is a problem, and we become willing to change and find a solution. And she looked really relieved. She was like, oh, right on, okay, so I just have to witness my judgment? And I was like, yes, step one. Immediately, I got on the train, I went right back to my apartment, I was like, step one, witness your judgment without judgment. So this was the first step in the book, and it was amazing. And I'm actually going to witness my judgment without judgment and ask somebody to shut that back door so I don't see that light. Thank you. This is my little thing. I see these doors open. So witnessing our judgment without judgment is one of the most important practices, because we cannot begin the journey unless we have the awareness of the problem. You cannot change unless you're willing to look at your crap. You got that? You cannot change unless you're willing to look at it, unless you're willing to admit it and allow yourself to be present with it. So the cool thing about this step is that there's just 4 questions that you ask yourself. And you're going to ask yourself this based on all the different judgments that might come up for you. And when you ask yourself these questions, you're going to be able to start to see some patterns showing up. And you're going to be able to witness those patterns, and you're going to be able to understand how this will take you into the second step. So the 4 questions that you'll ask yourself are, what or whom am I judging? So asking yourself that question, what is the issue? Who am I judging? The second question is, how does it make me feel? Because if we don't get real about how it makes us feel, then we can't begin to heal it. Because really the judgment is there because of a feeling that we don't want to feel. And so we also have to get honest with ourselves about how the actual act of judgment is making us feel. Take an honest audit of how it's making us feel. And then the third question is, why do I feel justified in this? And we got to get the justification out, because how many of you feel justified in your judgments? I know that, like, everybody, raise your hands. I know you will. You're like, well, I think this is how it's supposed to be. So get that judgment and justification out onto the page, because if you don't honor the justification, you can't actually begin to heal the problem. So why do you feel justified in the judgment? And then the final question, what experience from my past has triggered this judgment now? What experience from my past has triggered this judgment now? Because behind every judgment is a core wound. So when I was judging that yoga teacher for judging me, it made me feel like crap. Second question, it made me feel like crap because here I was judging another spiritual teacher, so I didn't feel good about myself. And then I was justified in it because I was like, how dare she judge me in front of her yoga class? Come on now. That's not yogi, right? That's my justification. And then the final question was, what is this? What experience from my past is triggering this now? What experience from my past is triggering this now? And I got very clear. It was a feeling of not being smart enough, not being adequate. 6th grade, the boy that I had a crush on told me I was stupid. And that one remark set me on a trajectory that changed my educational pathway for the rest of my life. It crippled me up until the point of having to write my first book. Even that moment of having to write that first book, I sold the book, and then I said to myself, oh my God, I have to send the money back because I don't know how to write a book. I'm not smart enough. Thankfully, I didn't listen to that voice, because many lives have been saved as a result of not listening to that voice. So next time you find yourself stopping your gifts because of a fear-based belief from your past, think of all the people that you may save if you show up for it. And so thankfully, I allowed myself to heal that wound, but there it was again. So sometimes these wounds may feel like they're healed, and then they show right back up, and they're right in your face. And here it was once again, this core belief system, I'm not smart enough. So can you see those 4 steps just beautifully intertwined here? And as you begin to practice these 4 steps, you're going to be like, oh my God, I've got so many patterns. What am I going to do? Which brings me to step 2. These steps are cumulative. They have a beautiful, beautiful bridge upon the next, upon the next, upon the next. And there's this amazing opportunity because you've answered that fourth question. You've looked at all of these experiences from your past, and you've realized, okay, these patterns are here, and there's some wounds. And that second step is to honor the wounds. Honor the wounds that live beneath the judgment. When I was a few months into writing this book, I had to go and do a retreat. And so I was going off to do this retreat, and it was a different situation I'd never been in before, where it was only a 40-person retreat. It was like media and influencers. And I was the teacher, but I was also a participant. It wasn't something I'd ever really done. And so it was a dynamic that I wasn't accustomed to. And there was like no boundaries. There was no like teacher and I'm gonna go and take a nap now. It was like we're all hanging out. We were at the pool together. We'd have dinner together. Then I'd be teaching a class in the morning and then we'd be hanging out in the afternoon. So it was just this real fluid experience. And there was amazing people in this group and I made some incredible friends. There was one woman in the group who I just thought was amazing. She was beautiful and she was smart and she was witty and she was just fun and everybody loved her. And I wanted to love her, but there was something that was up for me. And I kept thinking, man, she's such a flirt. Like, she's just such a flirt. She's just flirting with everybody. She's like flirting with the girls, and she's flirting with the guys, and she's just such a flirt, and she's just so confidently flirting with everybody. And it was like, you know, I just kept thinking it and thinking it and thinking it. And this is the thing, guys. If I think something long enough, eventually it's going to come out of my mouth. So we're at dinner. And she's sitting there at dinner, and she's surrounded by all these people, and she's sitting and she's like leaning in with this guy, and they're having this very deep conversation. And I look over and I glance and I see the deepness of this millennial conversation. I'm like, oh my God. Total judgment. No offense, millennials. And I look over at her and I'm just like, oh my God, you're such a flirt. And her face dropped. And she just looked at me with such terror and just such upset. And I thought, oh no, I went too far. But instantly I was like, I'm totally kidding. I'm just kidding. Like, get over it. It's such a joke. I'm totally kidding. Relax, it's fine. And I just kept blowing it off. And I like told my husband about it. And he's like, I was just kidding. It wasn't really a big deal, you know? And I went to sleep that night and I woke up in the morning and I felt these pangs of anxiety, just so much anxiety and just guilt. I was like, oh, I screwed up. I really screwed up. So I texted the girl and I said, listen, why don't we meet for breakfast? She writes back, good idea. So we're sitting at breakfast and my husband's with us. And I'm just, you know, I'm kind of like defending myself. And I'm like, it really wasn't a big deal. Like, just, it's okay. And Zach texts me from under the table and he goes, defending yourself isn't an apology. Yes, let's give Zach, he might be the hero tonight. You can thank him later. Actually, don't talk to him. He's going to be scared. So ultimately what happened was he gets up. Zach gets up and he leaves and he takes a phone call. And now I'm left with her alone in this like ice storm and I was freaking out. And I'm looking at her and I just have nothing to say because I've just totally talked myself into a hole. And I say a prayer. I need a miracle here. She speaks first. She said, you know, Gabby, what you said last night really triggered me. It wounded me. It hurt me. Because I need to explain to you that lately I've been dealing with some traumatic memories from my childhood where I was inappropriately treated by men, and I'm very uncomfortable about being seen that way. And you speaking to me like that really hit home for me. This was the miracle. Because I looked back at her and I said, me too. At the exact same time in my life, I was recalling my own memories of disturbing experiences from my childhood. And I could, in that moment, realize That what was triggering me, her sexuality, her comfort, her confidence, was all that I wanted to be able to own in myself. And my remarks to her were triggering her fear of being seen like that. And in that moment, I recognized myself in her. I could see that my wounds were her wounds. I could see that my recovery was her recovery. So we stood there holding each other and hugging in this very busy dining hall, just hugging and crying and honoring each other's wounds, honoring each other for all that we'd been through, honoring each other for what we were healing, honoring each other for the moment that we had. In that moment, the judgment dissolved and the wound was healed. The wound between us, the bond was back, and the judgment was dissolved.
If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.